Welcome to the
Hello.
Goblins Pockets, a D&D podcast where we tell you what's good and what sucks and what you should spend your money on and what you should not bother with and what's a waste of time and what's a great use of your time. I'm
Run
Ian.
with it. I'm Monica.
Yes, we are. And we are the Goblins Pockets. Yeah, how you doing?
I think Ian needs a holiday.
I'm going on holiday. I'm off on Friday.
We both are, aren't we? We just like, bye.
Yeah, I'm going to fucking Disneyland.
I'm just so excited for you.
I'm one of those kids that never got to go to Disneyland, so my wife secretly booked me some tickets to take me to Disneyland. So I'm excited.
That's so cute.
I'm gonna go and see Mickey Mouse.
You're gonna see Mickey Mouse. You're gonna get all like teary me, like Mickey, I love you.
Yeah. How about you? What's new with you?
I have survived my second hen do, which was great. Mary
So
and all my bridesmaids were amazing. I know 2 or 3. Like, come on, guys. Like, I'm special like that.
Are we going to make you give a D20 rating of all of your hen do's?
Oh no, please don't make me. Don't make me. They're all great. But Mary and Georgia did such a beautiful time, and I saw my sisters, and we made earrings, and we drank in a classy way all day long, and then we went to eat delicious food, and there were tears, happy tears, sad tears, all the tears. It was great. It was wonderful. Right. It was a great weekend, and now I'm back home where it's now the temperature of the sun. So,
yay!
But look, I even put makeup on for you guys. Like,
oh wow, we're so privileged. Yeah, we're here, and let's talk about D&D stuff.
Yes, today's an important episode.
Well, I don't know. We're a bit late off the bat. I think.
A little bit.
A lot of people will have bought this already, I imagine, because we're a bit behind the times.
Well, it's summer.
Hey, it's the thing. But yeah, today we're going to talk about Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel, the latest installment from Wizards of the Coast, or whoever they're called these days. Whoever owns
whoever they are
days. Yeah. Take it away.
I shall take it away, because I was looking forward to this because you know we've had this discussion on here before. We've had this discussion related to the Adventure Zone, for example. Like, it's unfortunately that D&D is a world that's very male dominated and white man dominated.
I am currently gesturing to
you're a beautiful specimen.
My blanched white skin and my hairy face and my sweaty pits. I am your atypical D&D monster.
Your typical D&D
that's
monster.
It.
Yeah, my dog is also agreeing with you. Like, look at that, Ian's so typical.
Thanks, Nova. Yeah, go ahead though.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, it's unfortunately it's not, like, it's just tradition, right? Like, white men have been playing D&D since the dawn of time, and nothing wrong with that, but we like some diversity. And as you were pointing to yourself, something also came to mind. Please wear 50 sunblock at Disneyland, otherwise you're not going to come back alive from that trip.
I'm not that pasty.
You're quite pasty. He lies. He's quite pasty. So Journey Through the Radiant Citadel was a collaborative project of a series of modules that you can play at different levels. They go from level 1 to level 14. There's 13 kind of quite short adventures. And it was all created with 50 people of color, Black and brown people. All of the writers of the adventures are people of color, and a lot of the people involved in the kind of creative process in general. So it's a beautiful endeavor, and it was kind of designed to reflect this. It was designed to reflect the lived experience of people who find themselves walking through the world as Black and brown people in communities in a very white dominated world, unfortunately. It's a beautiful exploration of identity and belonging and community, and it strives to include a lot of the just traditions, culture, beliefs of these communities in the adventures themselves. what I think is particularly interesting is, Ian and I, just before recording, we quickly read through the introduction of the book, and it also strives to challenge people to role play against their own type. So to try and put themselves in the shoes of someone who's quite different from who they are, or classes and races that they wouldn't necessarily have played before. And it offers a kind of gentle guide on how to do that, how to offer descriptions, how to choose your character, in a way that I don't think other books have really done. Like if you compare it to the Player's Handbook, the Player's Handbook is much more matter of fact. It's like, this character does this.
Yeah, I mean,
You
I
know?
think this is something that the D&D lot have been trying to address over the last few books, this idea of races not being stereotyped. This, you
Yeah.
know, we've been looking at it basically, I think, since Tasha's launched, where you had a few new, excuse me, a few new kind of races where you're saying basically it doesn't matter that you're X race, you don't have these particular stats,
Yeah.
you just have some points you can buy some abilities with. And this is just going a step further. And you're completely right, like D&D's been around since what, the 70s or whatever, and it's that typical fantasy setting. It's the Tolkien-esque,
Yeah.
you know, your kind of Middle
Elves
Earth,
against
Norse. It's very,
ogres.
you know, it's very white, like, and you know,
Super white.
Tolkien knew what he was doing. It's post-war or whatever, you know. It's like, you know,
Pre-war.
yeah, this is it. It's Caucasian as fuck. And every edition thereafter is almost definitely been created by a majority of Caucasian people. And when you're pulling culture and you're pulling things, you pull from your own experience. And for a lot of these people, you know, they're just going to keep pumping in white culture because that's where they are and where they come
draw
from. So it's like, yeah, get some new blood in. And, you know, they're doing a lot more with, you know, they're doing a lot more hiring with people of color. And I think there's still a lot of, I've definitely read some articles where it's like, you know, they're just hiring people and then laying them off and trying to hit those diversity like markers and all these, you know, this is Wizards are still a big business, and you know, there's still a lot of shitty things that go on in there, and there are a lot of people that aren't. And I'm sure there's content out there that is specifically created by, you know, a more diverse community of gamers, and go out there and find it, because you know,
100%.
like hands up, I'm doing like a Norse sort of thing at the moment in my campaign at the moment, but I do have islands, and I've had 2 islands, and my southern island is definitely a lot more Eastern European, no, sorry, not Eastern European, East Asian. So yeah, it's, and if you've got anything, any kind of mix of cultures, or those kind of a bigger world that you've homebrewed or anything like this book's full of ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, just before we move on, I wanted to kind of, because just in case there are people who are not proficient D&D players listening to us, the thing that Ian was referring to initially in terms of an evolution from Tasha is, when you create, if you have never created a D&D character like yourself and have always used pre-made characters, when you choose a race, traditionally you would have, for example, elves had a +1 to dexterity and a, I don't know, -1 to constitution.
You picked a hard race because they have sub races.
There's so many.
Never mind.
Sorry.
On,
let's take something else. But like, you know, dwarves would have a +2 to constitution, a +1 to, well, but you would have a preset idea of what bonuses
all elves are dexterous, all dwarves have high constitution, all, you know,
and they would change, and you would have different subclasses, but you would have to pick a subclass in order to justify like a modification. You would probably, you would struggle to make a scrawny dwarf, you know, it would be quite difficult to make like a, you know, a low con dwarf. And Tasha kind of changed that, said, it's up to you, like you decide how to make your character, and here are some ideas, but you basically have a point buy system where you can choose what kind of advantages you have and disadvantages you have in your character. And that was a really, like, as someone who's played ever since 3rd edition, that was the first time that was ever done. Like, you had a standard set of things that you could choose for your character, but you could never really completely customize it.
No.
And ever since then,
we
Sorry,
talked
go
about
ahead.
it in Mordecai, and they went
Yeah,
even further. You've got like
yeah.
30 races in there, and all the races say put 3 points wherever you want them,
Wherever you
basically.
want, exactly. So it just kept going further
Yeah.
and further away from that kind of stereotypical versions of races and characters.
So
And I think Journey Through the Radiant Citadel encourages you to take the story, even
yeah, I
further,
think,
basically.
they're trying to, because if you are part of the D&D community, you keep up to date with any of the kind of press and what's going on in the forums and stuff like that. There's a lot of pushback to this sort of thing, because it's
Yeah,
like people going, oh, dwarves are supposed to be small and strong and blah blah blah,
yeah,
and it's just like, okay, but not always. Like, that's racist, and it's like, it's that kind of thing, and a lot of people don't like being called out on that. But D&D are, they're trying. I think they're trying. I'm not saying
yeah.
they're perfect as a business,
No, they're
or
not
the
perfect. They're not
production and the
perfect.
stuff they're putting it out. Like, don't get me wrong, they've put out these last couple of books. I wouldn't be surprised if they go ahead and just like, I know they're doing the Spelljammer thing, which is pretty cool, but I know they've also got, there's plans for another book that's coming out that, again, it's just it's an old school like D&D module that they're pulling back, so it'll just be regurgitating some old stuff. But it's good that they're hiring on people and they're putting products out there that make people think, oh, it doesn't just have to be
Yeah,
Lord of the Rings.
yeah. And
And
representation is everything.
yeah,
We discussed this before, like the same way that you would watch a movie and wish people who looked like you would be on screen, which
yeah,
with people like me and Ian is quite easy to say. Like it's easy to find people who look like us. But if you go on D&D, or if you look at the lore and the worlds created by D&D, it's quite difficult. If you're a person of color, it can be quite difficult to find yourself in them.
yeah.
And Journey Through the Radiant Citadel is an attempt to show that everyone is welcome to play D&D, and it's an attempt to show that everyone has something to contribute to the world and the lore
Now,
of Dungeons and Dragons.
so as we're talking about this, and we're talking a lot about diversity, we're not saying that if you buy Journey Through the Radiant Citadel, it will be word for word Asian history, word for word,
No, absolutely not.
West
It's Wizards
African
of the
history.
Coast.
Like, it's not. It's still a fantastical world, but the cultures in this book are inspired by
And the stories and the
and the
lore.
stories. They're inspired by folklore and culture from lots of different places. So I know there's Asian inspiration, there's African inspiration, there's Latin inspiration, and there's stuff from all over. There's non-white, basically, and that's cool. You might be listening to this and you might have seen this book and just been like, mate, I've been homebrewing my own kind of Japanese inspired world for ages. Like, and it's like, yeah, cool, good for you. This just gives people who like to run modules something new, basically. And the setting of the book is, it's kind of set in this world, this hub, the Radiant Citadel, which is like this.
It's in the astral plane, right? It's a citadel in the astral plane, which
and it's like a melting pot of all these cultures. So it's kind of like a hub for all of these different worlds. And the idea that you run these 13 adventures in this book is that you're going through portals effectively to different worlds. And each of these worlds is, culturally inspired. The hub in the middle is so I mean, we can talk more about actually the book as a campaign.
We'll talk more about how to use the book as a player and as a DM. Before we do that, before we go to break, I just want to mention that there is a beautiful interview with two of the co-creators of the co-founders, co-leads of the book. That we will link in the description, because it's just kind of a first person.
I think I saw it when it came out, because it's been out a while, hasn't it?
It's been out a while. It was kind of like a hype kind of interview that to introduce the book. However, it also gives you a perspective of someone who's worked in the book to kind of, if you're not sure, if you want to hear more about the details, they can definitely help with that. So we'll put that in the description.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's take a little break and we'll come back into nerd stuff. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Hey, got an idea for something we should review? Or been thinking of buying something for your D&D collection, but the price has put you off? Why not join our Patreon? For just £4 a month, You'll get a say on what content we review, and when we buy something using Patreon contributions, we'll raffle it off to our patrons. So, you'll be in with a chance of winning the thing you wanted us to review anyway. Good, right? So, go find us on Patreon at The Goblins Pocket. And of course, all new supporters get a shout out on the latest episode. Because we love you. We're back. And we're still talking about the Radiant Citadel. Journeys through the Radiant Citadel. So I'll put my hand up and say, we're going to talk about this from like a running it as a DM perspective. I've run precisely one module in my 3 or 4 years playing D&D, and most of that as a DM. From there on, I've homebrewed almost everything. That is a personal preference. There might be people listening to this that don't even know what I mean, but basically I make up my own worlds and my own stories as opposed to reading them from a book that D&D provide. And that's mostly because I'm a cheap ass and I don't want to spend 30, 40 quid on a book to tell me a story.
No, Ian, it's because you're a creative genius. That's why.
Thank you. But no, it's my experience of running, basically the first thing I ever ran was a module. I bought the starter kit and I ran the Lost Mines of Phandelver, and it was great. Like, it's nice to, as a DM, like my first time DMing, my second session, it was nice to have some kind of grounds to kind of start at. And if you are a brand new DM, or you're listening to this after you just watched that new movie that came out, or anything like that, or you're thinking, you could buy this book as like one of those first books. They do actually, I think it says in the book that you need the player's handbook, the monster manual, and the Dungeon Master's handbook guide to use this book. I don't know how true that is. I mean, if you, I would say you could definitely probably take away the Dungeon Master guide.
I think you probably need the player's handbook.
The player's handbook, most people
that will have a lot of the rules.
Yeah, but you could probably use the free rules, free
version. Yeah, exactly.
And then the monster manual will just be because they refer to monsters in the adventures that are in the monster manual. But if you Google stat block for Displacer Beast, you get a stat book. It will just pop up. So I think you could still just buy this one book and start playing D&D, because as Monica mentioned, you've got 13 adventures that start from level 1 up to level 14. And I don't think, I mean, you could just crush through them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like, and level up to 14 in that time. Fuck it, who cares? Like, and there's plenty of fun to be had in a multicultural, very diverse world. So if this is your first book, fuck it. I think you could probably run straight out off of this one book. It's got some pretty cool things. Like, one of the things that's in the introduction that I really like is this idea of like detail, not stereotypes. They talk about avoid descriptions based on stereotypes. So, and then it just gives you some examples of how to elaborate on, or some alternative ways of mentioning and describing people that are less stereotypical. So I'm not going to lay down any stereotypes because that's bullshit, but they've got some stuff in there. And I think the way that it outlines this idea of how to describe people, because someone like me, if I bought this book, I am a white dude, and if I'm trying to explain this character in this Asian inspired adventure that you've got here, like, it's nice to have some ideas of how to describe them,
inspiration,
exactly, and all that shit is covered in the adventures. So when it gives you the flavor text and things like that, and ways to read them out, and so you will inherently get, they give it to you on a plate, basically. And that is kind of how modules work in D&D. They tell you what to do, and I'm not going to tell you how to run modules. My experience of them is, if you're a DM, pre-read as much as you can remember, and then start play with your characters and refer to it when you need to. It's kind of different things to different people, but I would definitely say, I imagine it even says in here somewhere that go ahead and read the adventure before you run it. I think modules I've always struggled with, because it's that idea of always trying to get people to come back to the storyline. And we talk about railroading and forcing people down tracks.
It's the fundamental idea of railroading, because you have a story that you have to follow, and you get, like, your players are going to have to get there, like, you know, if they want to finish the quest or whatever.
I think for new DMs, railroading is safe. It feels comfortable. You read the thing, and if somebody tries to just sway away from you, drag them back to the storyline. A more experienced DM might be able to always make all roads lead to X, and you know, but fundamentally be a bit more free about that. But running modules is not something I can give a huge amount of advice on. I can, however, say that this has got these 13 adventures, and I think from that interview that you mentioned, or even just some blurb about this book, one of the nice things they talk about is this concept of the Radiant Citadel sits within the astral plane. If you can get your characters from your current campaign that you're running, that you've maybe been running for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 6 months, whatever, and get them to the astral plane, they can go to the Radiant Citadel. And then from there, based on what level they're at, you could run one of these adventures. So if you've got a bunch of level 8 people in this Norse campaign, sort of like me, it's like, okay, let's get them here, and then let's take them off here for a day and go and do this, and they'll pick up an item they need, and then maybe they go to another place from this hub. Equally, you can just lift these places out of this book and say, okay, we've got this, you know, this Latin inspired, there's one of these, like the kind of the Death Day adventures. It seems really fun. It's like a festival. Fuck it, let's just lift this adventure out of this book and plonk it in my current campaign, because why not? Who's saying that we aren't traveling to a place that reflects this, or it's just a city or a town where they've got this culture, they've got these traditions, and this is a bunch of people are celebrating this today.
If you're a skilled DM, you can probably also modify the adventures, because I was about to ask you exactly this, which is, do you think that someone who's running their home brew campaign would be able to take some of these elements of these adventures and use them? And for example, the Radiant Citadel being the astral plane, for me, is it's a wonderful location, because the astral plane is everything and nothing at the same time. Like you can easily travel to the astral plane and find the Radiant Citadel and be like, oh wow, okay, now I'm here, and it would make perfect sense regardless of whatever world you're in. But at the same time, does that apply also to the modules? As in, do you think that a skilled DM would be able to take like a level 4 adventure and, you know, like hype it up to a level 6, for example? Like,
definitely. I mean, when we're talking about this book, we've got these 13 adventures that are recommended for this level and this level. The only thing that makes them recommended for X level and X level are potentially skill checks, which can be flexible. You can flex them up and down, and the monsters you encounter. If you're just use a different monster or scale up a monster. There are tools online to scale up monsters, but there's also just, you know, bump up,
give a monster a horrible migraine, and therefore it's going to be less of a challenge.
And equally scaling down. I'm currently using some, well, you know, spoiler alert from any of my but I'm going to be using some wildly over challenge rated monsters against some of my players in the up and coming sessions.
Are you giving them an ancient red dragon?
Some of them have got some debilitating issues that make them less dangerous. So, you know, maybe they've got levels of exhaustion. Maybe they're already been in a fight. Maybe they're missing a limb, and this gives them disadvantage. It lowers their attack and things like that. So with all of these, you can scale them accordingly. It takes a bit more work, definitely. But if you are a DM that preps prior to sessions, then you should be fine. I'm not going to go. I mean,
I love the fact that you said, if you're a DM that preps prior. Why are there DMs who don't prep, who just like show up?
Me, I definitely do. I'm currently running my campaign at the moment. I'm actually really enjoying it because I've got a lot on. I'm recording this podcast. I've got college. I've got work. I've got a lot going on. And one of the ways I deal with that is I've got my D100 table of events, and I've got 100 events that can happen during during travel and when people arrive in town. And they're
Okay,
kind of
okay,
like
okay.
2 columns of things that can happen. So as soon as my players are like, we're going on, we're heading out, it's like, yeah, cool. Next person rolls a D100. And then there's a thing that happens on the road. They just
Yeah.
encountered this like psycho, like mind possessed paladin. It's like, that's just something that was on the road. And now that's like half a session, like prepped for
Gone.
me.
Yeah.
So
Amazing.
I pre-prep. So
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
sometimes, yeah, it is a thing. But
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
no, it's cool. And I would say this is the same about all modules. So if you're like, oh, Radiant Citadel just came out, God, it's a lot of money. I wonder if there's another module out there, and there might be an older module that you're looking at that's like, oh, this one's only a tenner. Like, I don't know, you found somebody who's selling this, Storm Kings, whatever they're called. I can't remember all these books' names. There's hundreds of them.
Yeah, it's too many.
And you're like, okay, you can take those. Nearly all of them are like broken out into this part of this adventure is for levels 4 to 6, and it's like, okay, let's take that out and slot it into my homebrew world or slot it into whatever I'm doing. For the most part, you might need to mix up a couple of the NPCs, but that's it. We're in a nutshell, we're not here to review the Radiant Citadel word for word and tell you, oh, there are 6 new creatures in it, because there are some new creatures in it. I will say this, though. This is just an adventure book, really. There's no new races in it if you're really into character building or anything like that. You're not going to get sweet new, character races. You're going to get some races in there in terms of new cultures. But yeah, this is not that book. This is not full of monsters. There's a few like boss monsters that are in it. I can't remember. It's half a dozen at most, something like that. So you're going to get a few new monsters if you buy this book, and they are specific to those adventures and the, what's going on in them. This is an adventure book, and it's 13 adventures, and use those as you will. Run them from 1 to 13.
Yeah.
Slot them into your own things. So
do whatever you want with them.
Yeah, if we're talking about should you quote unquote waste your time and money on this,
it really depends on who you are.
Yeah, if you're a player, don't buy this.
Nope.
Like, and I'm sure you're smart enough to have worked that out already. If you're a DM and you like running modules, sweet, maybe buy this. If you're a DM that has a homebrew world and you're coming up to a point in your life where you're like, I don't have quite as much time to do prep as I like. This has got some cool small adventures in it that I can slot in here and there. Yeah, go for it. Yeah. Like, I think you could slot these in all over the place. Yeah. I think I can't give you an honest like rating of this book because A, I've not run anything from it, and B, I don't run modules as a rule. Yeah. Maybe that's something I should give a go. Well, I can give it a go. And
it really depends on your style.
Yeah.
Right?
So yeah, I think this is one of those ones where I know there's 100 videos out here on YouTube where people are going to tell you the ins and outs, the high detail about this book. And what we're going to say at the Goblins Pockets is if you've got 30 quid or $50 or whatever it costs spare, and you like to buy books and you like to run modules, do it. If you don't think you're actually going to use it, you're not going to get anything out of this book.
You're not.
Like, if you're not going to run the adventures, this is just going to look pretty on your shelf or take up room on your list on D&D Beyond, basically.
Yeah.
So if you're hard set on, you've got a world that you're running at the moment and you're like, no, this is my world. My world is only in, Central America, and I only run these sorts of campaigns at the moment, then you might want 1 or 2 out of this, and you might buy it, or you might just think, I can do without it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is not a must-have book.
No, it's not. It's absolutely not. It's you can definitely do without. I would add, this is a conscious effort by Wizards of the Coast to have more diverse writers contribute to their world. So if you want us to support that effort, by all means do that. There are other ways that you can do it. There are other ways that you can support people of color in D&D and kind of contribute to them directly. There is a question of whether Wizards of the Coast is just doing this performative thing of just creating this one book that collects the voices of all people of color in the world.
So they can check off.
So they can check the box. And in that case, it would be shame on you, Wizards of the Coast. I personally like the setting. I personally like the idea of having pre-run modules because I'm going through a lot and I don't know if in my campaign I will always have things for my players to do at all times. So this probably would be a book that I would buy because of the kind of DM and, you know, person that I am in terms of, you know, what kind of things I like to buy, but also because I think that, you know, we should encourage Wizards of the Coast to do more things like this. And therefore I don't mind spending whatever, $30 on this book.
Yeah.
However,
totally.
don't feel like if you're thinking this is a wonderful idea, we like to have more people of color contribute, don't feel pressured to think that this is the only way that you can contribute to people of color in D&D. It is not. There are a lot of people who play D&D and who write content for D&D who are people of color, Black and brown people from all over the world. Find that content, give them money directly. That is also a super good idea, and maybe will cost you less than $50 to buy a physical book. So
yeah, and it might be something that you use more regularly.
That you actually use more regularly, exactly. So find the balance.
You know what? One thing I will say, like we're not going to rate this. I don't think we don't need to.
No, we don't need to.
It's doing a good thing, and we don't have a high enough. Like we don't have enough experience of it. Yeah. Like I've read through it briefly.
I want to play a module, but
this is it. Why don't people sell modules? Where's the secondhand market? Geeks, nerds, stop collecting.
Nerds, unite!
Stop collecting. I hate you.
You run the module. Sell it.
Look at my wall behind me here. There's a fucking dressing gown and some fake plants. Like, why is it that every fucker on YouTube has got a shelf full of D&D books they don't use? Sell those fucking books. You've run that module. Sell it.
Give it to someone who needs it. Give it to a nerdy 14-year-old who's just trying to run a module.
If there's somebody out there who is trying to work, like, I will say this, like, if you go on eBay right now and you put in D&D books, you'll only find old editions.
Players handbooks.
It's mad. Like, nobody sells D&D stuff. And this is an example of something that you're like, if you play with the same people, once you've run a few modules and you're done with it,
sell it.
Sell it. Like, people sell stuff. Please sell me stuff. I don't want to spend £50 on a book.
I just want to run one module. That's all I want.
No, it is mad. That's a rant for another day. Maybe we'll do
there's a rant that will continue. We will bully our followers
I'm a big supporter of selling things you don't use.
Yes, agreed.
So yeah.
And especially modules. You run them. That's it.
Yeah,
give them away.
It's not a source book. It's not a source book. It's got 1 or 2 stat blocks in it. Take a photo of the stat block and sell it. Anyway, that's my rant. Yeah, you can get in touch with us. Tell us to sell Ian. What's your bugbear? Hey, that's what's your D&D bugbear? And
you need to make an Instagram post immediately.
Yeah, oh, man. I don't need to create any more Instagram. I'm going on holiday. You can do Instagram.
I'm so bad at the Instagram. What is Instagram?
What is Instagram? Yeah, get in touch with us. We are at the Goblins Pockets on Instagram. The Goblins Pockets at gmail.com if you want to email us. And we are also on Patreon, the Goblins Pockets. This book is going to be the first thing. We actually need to hurry up and goddamn do that. But yeah, we have Patreon. Our Patreon contributors can win books and things that we review because
Ian believes in giving them away.
Exactly, and we've reviewed this book. We're done with it, and I'm probably not going to use it. So we're gonna give it to someone. So
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we'll raffle.
So become a Patreon, get books, and support us.
Yeah, exactly. Come follow us on Patreon. Meanwhile, follow us on things and speak to us. We love to talk. And we'll see you guys soon, I guess.
Bye guys. Enjoy your holiday, Disneyland.
Thanks, bye.